Hello, Linked HR community. Happy week. I'm Dr. Chris Wildermuth, your community chair. As promised, each week I'm going to bring you one competency that has to do with what we call the meaningful leader, or the leader who promotes an engaging environment. Today I'm going to talk about breaking silos, or building a collaborative environment. I'm going to take a step back and talk about a type of exercise that I do with my graduate students at Drake University in the Master in Leadership Development. It takes several forms. I do it with playing cards, virus pieces. The latest I did was with building a helicopter. The last one was an exercise. It was adapted from an exercise that was created by HRDQ called Jungle Escape. And in Jungle Escape, basically, people have to build a helicopter following a model to escape a monsoon that is going to take place in 30 minutes, something like that. But what I do with that exercise, and many variations thereof, is I give materials to 2 or 3 teams of people, depending on how many students I have in the class. And just by giving different sets of materials, people automatically assume that they are competing. Nothing else I say afterwards matters. So, for example, I could say, you, and I don't specify you who, are in an island. The monsoon is going to arrive. You have to reproduce this helicopter. Otherwise, everybody's going to die. Even if I don't specify that people have to work with their teams, they will. Now, here's the twist. What I often do in these types of exercises is I separate people into different rooms. So I say, for example, okay, you folks in this particular table, half of you are going to go to a break room, and the other half stays here. And I do that with all 3 teams. And by that, what I'm trying to do is reproduce the confusion that virtual teamwork creates. So I force them to work by communicating with each other via Zoom, virtually, by phone, however, email, however they want. And only part of the team actually sees in this case, the helicopter. The other part could not see. Well, as you can imagine, this breakup in communications make things even more complicated because now everybody's not in the same room. They're not working together. Does that sound familiar in terms of what you experience with virtual work? Now, throughout the exercise, then, I know people are working separately in teams, and I want them to get back together. So I start giving them some hints. I send messages to the team leaders, and I say, hey, guess what? The helicopter holds 20 people. I only have 15 in the room. Nobody moves. Then I say, the monsoon is going to come in only 15 minutes. If you guys don't get this helicopter done, everybody's going to die. The teams continue working as if nothing had been said. Then I try again. I say, all right, now the organization has money for everybody to work in the same room. And I'm hoping that when people come to the same room, they'll finally communicate. Very often they still don't. It takes several tries and several attempts to tell people, you only need to build one helicopter. I don't want to say that, but it takes various attempts for people to finally collaborate. And what's funny about this is that it doesn't matter if I'm doing a helicopter, if I'm asking people to build a virus to reproduce a DNA, to stop a pandemic. It's usually some kind of disaster that is going to occur, and the disaster is usually serious, and there is no real prize in winning. I never say the winning team is going to get points, or the winning team is going to get anything. So why are they competing? What I ended up by realizing is that competition is default. That's what people will do. They will assume that they are working within their tables. You might say, well, that's because you're doing this in the United States. Well, I'm originally from Brazil, from Rio de Janeiro. I've done this there. I've done leadership development in various European countries. I've done leadership development in rooms with people from sometimes 15 different countries. and the result was still the same. People would compete unless and until I distinctly told them, do not compete or you're all going to die. All right, what does that have to do with a meaningful leader? As a leader, if you do not pay special attention in bringing your people together, their default may be to compete. That default, their wanting to, that motivation to compete could come from various reasons. It could be because people are afraid for their own safety. It could be because of social identity bias. People will be closer to those that they see as close to themselves. That's a human psychological condition and a psychological phenomenon. It's very common and very strong. It could be because of an assumption of a zero-sum game in which if we win, you lose. But whatever the reason is for the competition, you will probably agree with me that it would be disastrous for the organization. You don't want different departments within the same organization to be competing. You want them to be collaborating. However, you also want them to be collaborating for the sake of engagement. Why? Because engagement requires people to feel psychologically safe. We talked about that in other sections of this weekly announcement. People need to feel psychologically safe. Safety does not only come from the leader. Safety also comes from the team members. Last week we talked about trust. It's not only important for you to trust your leader, it's also important for you to trust your team members. In fact, I'm thinking of a study that a student of mine did a while back in which he was comparing the importance of trusting the leader and trusting the colleagues, the team. And I remember that we were surprised as to how important trusting the team was for people's well-being. So here's the final conclusion, or the final question, I guess, that I will ask. As a leader, what have you seen done to purposely bring people together? Or what have you done to bring people together? Now, be careful as you answer this question, because if everything you did only focused on your own immediate team, you're not helping break silos. You're helping your own team work more cohesively, but you're not connecting various teams within the organization. For you to break silos, those exercises, those discussions, that whatever interventions you come up with to increase collaboration have to be throughout the organization and not just in isolated teams. And there's one more thing. No amount of team building and building fun helicopters and making pretty speeches about collaboration is going to solve the problem of competition if all your reward systems have to do with individual work. So that's my, just to remind you, that's the final question for today. What can your organization do to create a more collaborative environment? I'm very curious to see your answers. Have a wonderful week and happy learning.